Hello and welcome to In a Spiritual Sense, where we discuss all things spiritual, from growing your intuition, speaking with spirit guides, diving into past lives, the paranormal, and more. Join me, Cassie Uhl, where we work to bridge the gap between science and spirit. Hello and welcome back to another episode of In a Spiritual Sense. I am your host, Cassie Uhl, and I am very excited to get into today's topic, understanding auras. Because as you will learn on today's episode, understanding our auras is yet another tool that we can use to help aid us in our lives. I know personally this has been something that I have been very interested in as of late, and we have a wonderful guest, Cassie Uhl, who will be taking us through this experience and answering all of my questions. A little bit of background on Cassie. She is an intuitive energy healer, mentor, death doula, and the author of 7 books and 2 card decks. She combines her love of teaching with her creativity, offering readers beautiful and accessible information about various spiritual topics through her blogs, books, and podcast, Rooting Into Wholeness. She is passionate about helping others feel supported as they begin or deepen their spiritual journey in life or the dying process. Cassie opened up to her spiritual gifts at a young age through meditation and working with her energy. She had a supportive, open-minded grandmother who made her feel safe to explore her spirituality. This foundation helps her to be a compassionate guide to those who feel stuck, unsure, or even anxious about the next step in their spiritual journeys. Her healing practice offers a trauma-informed approach to energy healing, journaling, intuitive mentorship, and the end-of-life doula services. Everyone, please welcome to the show, Cassie Uhl. Hello, Cassie. Welcome to the show.
Hi, happy to be here.
Thanks so much for coming on. I'm very excited today because talking about auras is a topic that I have personally been wanting to learn more about. Mm-hmm. So thank you so much for sharing your time with us. I'm excited to dig into it. To start us off, I would love for you to give us a little bit of background on who you are, and then maybe kind of introduce us into how you got started or familiar with auras.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that. My spiritual journey is long and winding. I was very interested in energy and meditation as a young teenager. And really that was my introduction to auras as well. It was one of the earlier books that I got my hand on. One of them was about teaching you how to feel your energy, which really spoke to me because I felt so much as a young person. So it gave me a better understanding of why I felt so much. And that led me to start learning about auras. And then I started doing things like begging my sister to pose for me so I could see her aura. She always hated to do it, but she did it anyways. And then throughout, young adulthood and early adulthood, my relationship with spirituality, it waxed and waned, but it always maintained pretty steady throughout. And then as I got a little bit older, I kind of just dove back in. And 10 years ago, I started a business with spiritual jewelry. And then it just kind of like went, I've just kind of been doing that ever since, except for the jewelry. I mean, the spiritual part of it I've been doing ever since, but the jewelry stuff went away. And then I started writing books and just kind of, it took me a little while to get into, where I really needed to be, because I think that a lot of people may resonate with this, but it can be really scary to dive fully into that spiritual side, especially when it comes to like making a living off of it. So it was almost like I had to kind of start with a spiritual jewelry. Then I was like, okay, now I'll write spiritual books. And now I'm just like, okay, I'm an energy healer. I'm a death doula. I write spiritual books. This is all I do. And I'm good with it now. It just took me a little while to get there.
That is so funny. I mean, hey, that's what I'm going through myself. It's interesting how like there's so much, it's such a big world. And, I think starting with one thing will always lead you where you need to go. So thank you for sharing that. All right, well, let's just dive into it. What is an aura? why do we have them? Break that down for us.
Yeah, it's just our energy field. So I'm sure you and maybe some of your listeners have heard, the term vibes don't lie, energy is everything. Everything is really energy, and science is even catching up to this. When we get down to the really small, nothing is solid. Nothing is solid. Everything is energy. So the energetic field, or the aura, is the energy that kind of radiates out from everything. Everything has an aura, all animals, even inanimate objects, crystals. They're going to be, more, intricate, depending on, a human is probably going to have a little bit more intricate aura than, say, a candle. But everything is energy. So everything has that energy field. So it's just that energy that radiates out from us. And, a lot of us probably feel that. I know I did when I was around people, and sometimes when you get closer to people, you can feel that energy a little bit more. Spaces have their own energetic resonance and field. Like when you walk into a certain room and you're like, ooh, I don't know about this vibe, or you're like, ooh, it feels really good in here. That's that energetic field, that aura that you're feeling into and tapping into when you sense that. And as far as why we have them, I think it's just a greater expression of, our soul, our true essence. That's a good question, why we have them. I've not really pondered that.
I'm not sure if there is an answer to it. So,
I mean, I'm sure it varies from person to person, but I guess for me, I think it's, it's kind of like our true essence. When I work on people, when I do energetic healing work, that the energy body, the aura that I work with when I do that, it is very much like we're bypassing all of the human material, mundane world stuff, and we're just getting to the root of things. So it kind of just, it holds the true essence of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So I would think that would be one purpose, is it's kind of like that, that ethereal container for what we and who we are.
Yeah, I think that's a really good description. So let's talk a little bit about the chakra system. Actually, interestingly enough, we kind of just discussed this on a previous episode, but something that I love is every time I read or talk to somebody who is explaining the chakra system, I always learn something new. So I'm going to ask you, just kind of give a brief description of maybe the 7 chakras. I know that there are more than 7, but the 7 ones that we might discuss right now are probably more common or more commonly understood. So if you could kind of give us a brief description of those, and then kind of tie into how auras can play a role with that.
Yeah. So auras are kind of like the outer, and the chakras are kind of like the inner energy centers, and they connect and communicate to each other. The chakra system as we know it here in the Western world today is a rather modern invention. Invention may not be quite the right word, but it's very modern. This idea of 7 chakras with the rainbow of colors, it wasn't really put together until the 1970s. All across the world, there's mention of energy centers, chakras. It can vary from 2 to thousands. So there really is a much greater variety than what a lot of folks give credit. That being said, I do primarily work with that 7 chakra system. I do kind of overlap it with a Celtic 3 cauldron system, just because I think it's interesting to start to kind of play with some things that maybe are, for me, that are more in line with my personal heritage, and I encourage others to do that as well. But for that kind of new age, more modern 7 chakras, we have the root chakra at the base, the sacral chakra at the pelvic bowl, which is really our center of creativity. And I kind of skipped over the root, but the root is our connection to the earth. That is our, where those roots come out, where we connect to the earth, where we get grounded. And also what I see a lot in energy healing, and what I like to really talk about in that root space, is that it's also really responsible for making sure that our energy system is flowing and can be cleared out. The energy is not stagnating, that things are moving. When that root chakra gets really gunked up, it makes it hard for our entire energy body to function properly. So that root chakra is incredibly important. And I think in some spiritual circles, it gets a bad rap because it's like we're always trying to ascend. And I'm very much into the descending consciousness and getting into the earth and that root space and really making sure that that area is good.
Yeah.
Above that, we have the solar plexus, which is in like kind of between the belly button and the heart space, which is kind of our energy center, heart space at the heart, which is not only love, but it's also, I love thinking of the heart space as a bridge. It's the bridge from the lower chakras, which is more in the physical plane, the material world, and it bridges us into those upper chakras, into those more ethereal states. Then we have the throat, which is your ability to speak freely, but also I think connects a lot to, just being a teacher and sharing with others. And then third eye and crown, I lump these together a lot. That's really our connection to guides, higher selves, whatever words really resonate with you for something, a power greater than yourself.
Yeah, awesome. And now my next question is like, how does our aura extend outward? And are there layers? And then this might be the same question, and that is like, does each chakra system have a layer that is represented with the external aura? If you can kind of just speak on all of that in one, that would be great to kind of dig into a little bit.
Yeah. So most books, my book included, it's going to outline 7 layers to the aura. Each one of those 7 layers corresponds with one of the 7 chakras. Now, as I said previously, this chakra system that we have today is really quite a modern construct. So I always encourage people to, if that's not what shows up for you, if that's not what feels true to you, to honor that. What I say, what any other book says, is not the end all be all. Allow yourself space to have a different reality if that makes more sense to you or connects more to your roots, your heritage, your spiritual practices within your lineage. But that is the standard of what you'll see in most books. As far as how much it radiates out, it's going to vary a lot from person to person. I think it's going to vary a lot from, person to person, depending on where you're at in your life and how you feel. I think for a lot of us, for example, for myself, today I had a busy morning. I was out with my kids. I was feeling a little bit like constricted and agitated. And before I came on here with you, I made sure I had some time to meditate, to breathe, to drum, to connect to the earth. And it was like not only did my physical body change, you can feel the energy around, I could feel my energy changing. Yeah. And I could feel my aura kind of like, it's safe to unfurl, it's safe to expand. Whereas, a lot of times we might be a little bit more constricted. And even I'll do that sometime intentionally if I'm going into a really busy place where I'll be like, okay, I'm going to kind of visualize everything, all those tendrils of the aura kind of pulling back in, because I don't want to be mingling with everybody's energy when I'm out at the grocery store. Okay. So I think for those of, for folks who can really feel that, you can really control how far out and how far in your aura is expanding. And then for folks who maybe don't have that awareness of it, it's going to depend on kind of how they're doing emotionally, physically, spiritually, how far out their aura is going. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, sure. And then if there's anything on top of that, as far as, I guess my mind is kind of starting to go towards colors, even though I know that you mentioned the chakra system, that we know it's not just the definition of the colors. Let's go ahead and just talk about the colors of the aura system. Because I know that in your book, you talk about different colors, and, whether we touch on every color, that's not as important as kind of just describing maybe a couple examples of what they mean, and then kind of wherever your mind takes you. We're all ears.
Yeah. One thing that just popped into my mind now that I think is a good way of explaining this, because I think it can be really confusing when I tell people like, oh, you don't have to follow what's in the book. The colors aren't the end all be all. Well, something that I know is true for me and that I'd encourage folks to experiment with is the idea that spirit is going to talk to you in a language and in a way that makes sense to you. So if that 7 chakra system with the red for the root, orange for the sacral, yellow for the solar plexus, onwards and upwards, if that is what makes sense to you, that is how spirit is going to talk to you. So just to say that there's nothing wrong with that, and that spirit's going to communicate with you in a language that makes sense to you. Now, that doesn't mean you can't encourage or invite in different ways of being or thinking about it, but it's also just fine. So like I said, I think I said it, the chakras, each one relates to a layer of the aura. So the layer of the aura that's closest to the body is the etheric layer, which is closest to the body, and that connects with the root space. So it's kind of like whatever colors are most activated in your chakra system are most likely what are going to show up the most in your aura. Mm. Most people are going to have 1 to 2 dominant colors. And that's what I see when I work with people. I usually can sense 1 or 2 dominant colors that are kind of coming through. And that I can usually relate that to what I sense and feel while I'm working within their aura too. It matches up. Mm-hmm. So if you do have more of that red from the root chakra kind of flowing around in your aura, that usually for me, when I'm in that space working with people, indicates that they have a really strong connection to the earth. They have a strong sense of like connection to the material world. It can also mean anger, but a lot of times, when it's really pronounced, I see that it's more a power, like a really intense power and connection to the earth and communion with the earth. Whereas if you have more of that orange sacral energy in your aura, you might be an artist, somebody who's very creative. I see a lot of dancers with orange in their auras. And then purple, I'll skip around. I won't do all the colors, but when I see a lot of purple or sense that energy, and folks might find this too, when we think about the colors, when I say purple, I have a feeling with that. And that's really important to notice the feelings that you have associated with each of the colors and each of the energy centers, because that is just as informative as the color. So when I'm working with people, it is more that I feel that feeling of what purple feels like to me than actually see purple all around them. I just get a feeling. I'm like, they're very tuned in. They're very connected. They have that awareness, that open third eye where they can see things. So if I sense that somebody has that energy of purple around them, then I know that they're very intuitively open and aware.
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought that up. That was going to kind of be my next question is, I know when we think of auras, a lot of people right off the bat will think visual, but there's so many other ways that you can, use your connection with spirit. And so feeling is one of the ways. Can you go through a couple of other examples of how somebody could get in touch with their spirit, or I'm sorry, not with their spirit, with their aura, or in tune with auras around them? So we've touched on visually, and then feeling. What are some other ways that people might experience an aura?
So we've got the clairs. So clairsentience is your clear feeling, which can come through in different ways. Clairvoyance, your clear seeing. And then we have claircognizance, which is clear knowing. So that might come through as maybe you are next to somebody and something just drops in. You're just like, oh, this person is mad, or, oh, this person is having like a really good day, whatever that, or, if you're thinking about auras, you might just get, oh, this person has an orange aura. Now, trusting that, the claircognizant can be difficult because trusting those little drop-ins that you get can be really challenging, but that can be one of them. Clairaudience, this is not one that I have a lot of that it doesn't, I'm not super clairaudient. I have clairaudience sometimes, but it's not like my top clair. I'm definitely more clairsentient, claircognizant, clairvoyant. But people can hear like different sounds for different colors. This might resonate more with people who are very musically inclined, who play instruments. So that would be something I would say to kind of look out for if you are really into music and different things like that. That can be a way. I'm forgetting one of my clairs: clairsentient, claircognizant,
Feeling,
clairaudience,
seeing, hearing.
there's clairgustance, clair. Those are two of them. But I don't talk about those in my book because they are pretty uncommon. And I haven't gone around. Oh, clairtangent. That was the other one. Yes, I like clairtangent as well. That's definitely a big one. It's similar. So clairsentience and clairtangency is similar, I would say, but different. So clairtangency, that's when you're actually placing your hands on something. So another word might be psychometry. That's where you hold an object and you can get hits, psychic hits, or information from it. Clairsentience, you don't always have to be actually touching something to get that. You might just, you feel the energy of a room, you feel the energy of another person. Clairtangency, you're touching it. So when you put your hands on something like a person, for example, the way that psychic information comes through, it might vary. You might see a visual. So clairtangency kind of pairs up with the other clairs, because the way that it comes through is going to be one of those other clairs, but you need to physically put your hands on it. So that is another way. As far as experiencing the aura, though, through those different lenses, there are a lot of different ways. I'll share just a couple of ways that I share in the book. One is just to kind of sit down, quiet the mind, quiet the body, and just invite in, just say, I want to know about my aura, and just see what comes through. Just allow yourself some quiet space and time to see what comes through. Maybe you'll see some colors in your mind. Maybe you won't. Maybe you'll get more of a feeling. Like I said, what would green feel like if green was a feeling? What would red feel like? And maybe just even go through all of the different colors and ask yourself, what would each of these colors feel like? And do any of them really respond or resonate really well with my energy, to see if those kind of click or resonate? Then the other one would be just using the hands. And I love doing this. I'll share this exercise. I know I share it in my book. It's one of my favorites. And probably because it's one that I did when I was really young, and I was like, whoa, no way. Like,
yes.
But it's, you just, again, quiet your mind, quiet your body, and then you just rub your hands together a little bit. And then if you slowly start to move them together and farther apart, you'll feel, I can feel it now. Like I've always been able to feel, you can feel kind of like a ball of energy, or like energy kind of pushing your hands apart. So that's kind of the starting point, is to just notice if you can feel any of that energy between your hands. And then if you can, I invite people to kind of do a body scan. And what you'll likely notice, if you're able to feel that energy in between your hands just by kind of going back and forth, is that as you hover your hands over your body, you'll probably start to sense and feel different things. Like for me, my hands will kind of bulge out when I go over my heart space, bulge out when I go over my solar plexus. They'll bulge out every energy center that I go over. And sometimes they'll get tingly, sometimes they'll get warm. And it takes practice. I've been doing this for a really long time, so I can, feel more. But just, I encourage people to be really playful with it. Don't expect to get blown over. Spirit's quiet sometimes.
I love that. When you were doing your hands, were you rubbing it to get friction, or were you just putting them close? Do that one more time for us.
I was actually rubbing them together, kind of warming them up.
Okay. I'm going to practice that one, because something I would say over the past year, I have been working with my energy as well. And I've been feeling more with my hands, and I've been able to direct it, like whether it's with my hands or something different. I've been able to communicate with spirit by feeling energy going through my body in different directions. And so I'm curious, I'm going to start playing with that one as well. When you do your energy work, and you are working with auras, do you have to be, I'm going to put you on the spot. Do you have to be physically in the same room as somebody, or do you do virtual? Because my question, I have an idea of what my primary color would be. Can I ask you, can you sense anything just for fun?
I actually, I sensed a little bit, didn't even mean to, but I was just, when we hopped on, I got some yellows and turquoise. So I don't know if either of those are colors that you resonate with as well. But that's what kind of popped through to me.
They are, it's tricky because I have a couple, which I'm like, okay, well, no, I need to narrow it down. But I know yellow, I am a teacher, and yellow is one that, and I see yellow a lot when I close my eyes. Now, does that mean it's mine or coming from an external energy? I'll have to play with that because I do have guides who are also colors that I use for colors. But yellow, I would definitely sense. And then blue, or the turquoise, is, I have seen that before, not as often. I think at this time in my life, clearly I've got the show, you know, verbalizing and speaking my truth is something that is very important for me. So it's interesting that you said that. I can definitely see those. That was just, I was going to ask you.
Yeah. No, most of my clients, most of the work I do in the energy world is remote. I do have some in-person clients, but especially since I recently moved across the country, so I don't have a lot of in-person people going on. So almost everything is done remotely, and I love it. I think it really works better for people, to be honest.
Yeah, and it's interesting how that's come about, especially I know when COVID hit. There is a lot of spiritual work being done remotely, and it's interesting how you can share energies over a screen. Like, you don't have to physically be present. That's something that I've kind of been aware of as of late, and it's really fun. It's really interesting. So okay, so I know in your book you have a lot of great little tips and tricks for finding your primary aura color, and then also you just mentioned a great one for those of you who want to practice, you know, using your hands or just sitting with yourself and seeing what comes up for you. Let's get into the importance of protecting our aura. So now that we have a good foundation of that, you know, in your book, you talk a little bit about energy vampires. Why is it important for us to be conscious of energies around us and of our own energy?
Yeah, this is a big one. And to me, I'm like, this isn't even like spiritual. This is just like human 101. Like, we gotta be aware. We have to be aware of our surroundings, the people around us, who's siphoning our energy, and not only who's siphoning our energy, who we're allowing to siphon our energy, which I think is key. And it's very much about boundaries too. So much of this energetic protection, it's about having clear, healthy boundaries that you understand. It's more important. I know for me, it's more important for me to know what my boundaries are. It has very little to do with other people. I know what I need to do to protect my energy, to protect myself, to protect my magic. And it's about me not putting myself in situations that are going to drain me unless I'm, you know, prepared for it. And, you know, having the energetic kind of tools, and I call it energetic maintenance, to make sure that I'm clearing things out. So this is a big one. Do you want me to start with like,
there's a lot.
I can share some of my personal favorite, like energy maintenance, like energy clearing routines, some of my favorite things that I use. And that's all, you know, I say energy clearing, but to me, it's all, you know, it's the aura. The aura is our energetic field. It's all right. The same.
It's all the same. Yeah. Share with us some of your favorites. And then, guys, if you do want to know more, I've got the lovely Zend Out Guide to Understanding Auras. So you guys can go get that book and find out some more specifics. But yeah, I would love for you to just share some of your favorites, and then we'll kind of go through those.
Okay. Yeah. My absolute favorite, my daily go-to is grounding and connecting with the earth, which I touched on a little bit already, but that connection to the earth, as in regards to the energy body, for me is key, because, you know, I am earth. We are of the earth. We are from the earth. no matter how hard we try to separate ourselves and differentiate ourselves, we are earth, and we are connected to the same cycles. So when we disconnect ourselves from the earth, for me, I feel my energy just gets depleted and stuck and stagnant, and just things go awry for me really quickly when I don't have that connection, when I sever myself from that which I am.
Yeah.
So for me, that grounding practice, which can look like sometimes it's just me going for a walk. I love getting my bare feet on the ground. That's something I tell to my clients. Anytime I see my clients, I say, try to get your bare feet on the ground, even if it's just for 5 minutes. That's a really passive way to clear. And then you can take it a step farther by visualizing, or if you live somewhere where you can't get outside, visualizing that connection to the earth is just as powerful and potent as feet on the earth. And that can look like visualizing a beam coming from the base of the spine, connecting to the earth, or roots. And then when I visualize those roots and connect in, you might even, the more you practice it, you might even start to notice like a slowing down or a shift once you get rooted in. And then once I feel that shift of being really rooted in and connected, that's where I can kind of visualize drawing up energy and letting things filter out that are ready to go. It's almost like a loop of just like almost like I'm breathing with the earth, where I'm like, okay, breathing in that rich energy that's clearing, and then letting everything out that doesn't need to be with me anymore. So that's, for me, number one for clearing. And just maintaining that energetic maintenance and that connection to the earth. Some of my other go-tos, I love smoke. I use different things like cedar. I really like birch tree. I've been using birch tree leaves, and I use incense sometimes. So I use that as well. I'm a birch again. I'm really into birch. So I have a birch tree broom that I made myself, because birch is a really clearing plant, especially from like Celtic origins. So I use my broom to just clear out. And I'll just kind of ask, I'm just looking this way because I'm looking at my altar right now. And like, I've got a variety of tools, and really kind of call upon whatever I feel like I need, or whatever is kind of calling to me. And that's what I would encourage folks to do. Like, if, there's so many different ways to clear. We can clear with crystals, we can work with the elements, you can work with your guides, you can work with the earth. So maybe just tuning in and saying, what does my energy need right now? What would serve me most right now? And the other thing I would tack on to that is, all of these practices work better, all of these clearing practices, when they're things that we have a relationship with. So for example, I said I use that birch broom. Well, birch is a tree that I've worked with. I've sat with birch. I've meditated to connect with birch. So I have a relationship with birch. So when I work with the birch broom to clear my energy, it's like I'm calling on a friend to collaborate with me and work with me. It's not in an extractive way of like, get rid of this, do this for me. It's like, friend, I'm feeling called to you right now. Can you help me clear a little bit?
Yeah, I think that's beautiful. I love the relationship that you spoke about between, you and whether it be herbs or crystals or whatever that tool is. I think forming a relationship is really important. I've got actually a story to share. It was about a month ago, and life was happening to me. I mean, there was a lot going on, the holidays are coming around. I got really sick. My car broke down. Work was rough. And so it was like, one of those weeks where everything just seems to be happening. And there was a lot of friction. And during this time, I had really gotten away from my routine with spirit. I wasn't sitting with myself. I wasn't taking that time to relax and wind down. Recently, I've been very, interested and called to work with smoke medicine. And so I hadn't really been doing the things in my routine, like I said. And so there was this one day, and I said, you know what? I'm going home and I'm not going to do anything. And so I sat with myself and I started meditating. And, people who listen to the show, they know that I like to write. And so I pulled out my journal and I'm writing things. And then I started getting a lot of these little hits come to me. And one of the things that I wrote down was chapter 5, and it was the name of a chapter. And it was a title. I knew right away which book it was. It was a very, I would say, obscure title. So I knew which book it was. I hadn't read it for about 5 months. And I kind of come to, and I'm like, I'm going to go find this book. And if the chapter title is chapter 5, we've got something. So of course, I find the book. And chapter 5 was exactly what I heard, such a very obscure name. And so first I was like, yes, confirmation, validation, because that's always fun to get. But, and I started reading the chapter, and boy, if it was not what I needed to hear. It was all about staying on a routine and pretty much cleansing your aura. I didn't use the word aura. And interestingly enough, it was all about smoke medicine. And I was like, oh my gosh, yes, like this is just that confirmation I needed. I had been, praying to my spirit guides at the time. And I was like, thank you so much. Like, this is what I needed to hear. I already kind of knew I needed to do it. My mind was all over the place. And so, of course, since then, I have been staying on my routine, and, life is a lot smoother. And I like what you mentioned, that it's not just about trying to get rid of the bad, like get rid of everything. It's that relationship with like being able to just have a better mindset. And you are in a place where your perspective of things will allow you to have less friction around you, because the events that are happening around you might not change, right? But your perspective and having a response versus a reaction is what's going to end up, snowballing left or right. And so I had, a beautiful time, sitting with spirit that night. And so I encourage those of you listening, if that's not something that you do, I think it's important that we do have some sort of routine. It doesn't have to be anything extravagant. Like, I love that you mentioned just taking off your shoes and just standing in the grass. That's something that I like to do too. And, or if you don't have, an environment to do that, visualizing. I know we've spoken about the power of visualization before. So that was just a cute little story I wanted to share, and something that I have found success with. I will say, actually, I do have one question for you. Something that I've noticed within myself is the more empathetic I get, the more aware of energy I become. Do you find that it is easier become more influenced by those around you if you're not putting those boundaries up?
I think I know what you're saying, and it reminds me of, so there is one aura color, a newer one that I can't remember who kind of coined it, but the crystal aura. And these are the like extremely, it's kind of like the chameleon color. And I think that can be part of it. And I know for me, I have some of that chameleon color. And I think this one's tricky too, because I think some of it can have to do with growing up with trauma. Some of it is a protection mechanism that we've just kind of been trained at a young age, as self-preservation, which I can't speak to because that's out of my scope of practice, obviously. But I can say, I think when people are highly sensitive, empathetic, and maybe lean towards that crystal aura, even like a violet aura, that it can be easy to fall into cycles of people pleasing, and kind of taking on other people's stuff, or even mimicking other people's stuff. I have certainly gone through phases where I was doing that, and I have to be conscientious of not doing that. But I would say the more that I learn and know my energy and know my boundaries and know how far I can push myself, that is less of a problem, because I know myself better. Which does go back, because we didn't really talk about the energy vampires. And so, which I feel like it relates to that a little bit, in that, like, when I know my energy, I know the kinds of people and environments that are going to drain me. And it's not their job to change themselves. It's my job to change how much I let myself be around that environment. So, for example, this isn't even a negative one, but I'm also a death doula, and I work with people at the end of life, which requires a tremendous amount of presence and slowness. It's not something that you can just jump into. I have to get myself into a specific state of mind. I wear specific crystals or jewelry items to ground me and center me when I'm working with people at end of life. I don't go into it the same way that I go into dinner with my friends. I go into it very different because I know what I need energetically to stay grounded and present in that kind of environment. And the same thing goes, like, for example, if I'm meeting with a family member who I know talks my ear off, drains my energy, I know that I have to set up in advance how much time am I going to spend with this person and what's my out? Because I know that for my energy, it's going to zap me if I don't put those things in place. And it might also be putting some black tourmaline in my pocket before I go, or hematite. Hematite's another favorite for me when I'm around those people where I really want to deflect back the energy and say, no, you're not sucking any of my energy.
Yeah.
But it all comes back to, what am I doing to put those barriers in place for myself?
Yeah. And I think that's so important that you're talking about, us taking responsibility for ourselves, not putting it on our environment. Because I think that that's a big thing. It's subconscious in most of us. We want to deflect and we want to say, well, this is causing that, this is causing that. But if we can take responsibility and, we are the ones who are creating our environment. We are the ones who are creating the things that happen around us. And so I think that's really important that you said that. And a lot of great strategies that you've mentioned as well. Okay, well, Cassie, is there any last messages or advice or anything that comes to mind that you would like to share with anybody before we head out here?
I mean, honestly, the only thing that's coming to me now is to just get outside and connect with the earth. I think it's the most healing thing. And I think it's the most, there's so much wisdom there. We have so much to learn from our plant and animal kin who, they're living in the same wild, crazy world, but yet they're not causing the same harm that we are. And I think we have a lot to learn from that. I know I do. I learn so much every time I walk outside, every time I spend time with my tree friends. Like they teach me so much. So that's what I would have to say.
Absolutely beautiful. I love it. And I very highly agree. All right, Cassie, where can people find you?
You can find me. My website is just CassieUhl.com. So that's where you can learn more about the books, my mini books that I have. And I've got a new one coming out in January, a journal. And then I'm writing another one right now. And then I'm fairly active on Instagram. And that's just at Cassie Uhl. So you can peep me right there. I've been a little bit quiet on there lately as I'm, it's the holiday season. I'm chilling. So those are the best places to find me. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And I'll put all your links and everything down below for those of you who are interested. Well, Cassie, thank you so much for coming on today. I know I learned a lot. And again, I think this is such an interesting topic. So thank you for sharing all of this with us today. And guys, for those of you who enjoyed today's episode, I pray that you use it to inspire those around you. And I will see you next time on In a Spiritual Sense. Hey guys, I am back for a quick after show story, something too good for me to not share. I had a cute synchronicity that I could not help but come back on here and tell you guys. So as you know, I just got off with Cassie, and one of the questions I asked her was, what do you think one of my primary aura colors is? And she gave me two, one of which was yellow and then the other turquoise. And so something that I thought was really neat is I am going to read you the description of one of these that really resonated with me. Actually, both of them did. But the other one that I really, really connected with was the turquoise color. And so I'm going to start by reading to you what it says. People with turquoise as a primary aura color are often called old souls. Similar to indigos, turquoise feel a strong calling to progress the human race. Turquoises feel called to bring back essential teachings and healing teachings from our ancestors that have been lost over the years. Which, side note, if I had to write a mission statement for myself, that would be it. So, bingo on the turquoise. Continuing, many of them find themselves in a leadership and educational roles. Teacher. Turquoises are effective multitaskers who are focused and frequently very accomplished. So, not only does that pretty much describe me to a T, but something that I thought was hilarious is two pieces of jewelry that I wear are a moon ring and turquoise. And in her book, she goes on to explain how two crystals that are good for turquoise auras are moonstone and turquoise itself. And of course, I opened the book as soon as we hung up and read more about this. And when I saw that both moonstone and turquoise are two crystals that can one amplify and the other balance a person with turquoise aura, and I had already been wearing them, I thought this was too good not to share. So I had to hop back on here and share a little after show story. With that said, though, guys, I hope that you did enjoy this episode. Please use it to inspire those around you, and I will see you next time on In a Spiritual Sense. For those looking to connect further, please feel free to send emails to info@inaspiritualsense.com or hit me up on Instagram at spiagno, that is SPIAGNO, where you can find weekly inspiration and updates. I look forward to connecting with you.